A mysterious situation has arisen in a quiet suburban neighborhood where the neighbors have reported hearing disturbing screams of "help me" coming from a particular house. The police were alerted, and when they entered the house, they were shocked at what they found. They were left stunned as they uncovered something that they never could have imagined. The man's neighbors were worried and wanted to help, but what they discovered was beyond their wildest nightmares. The police were left scratching their heads as they tried to figure out what was happening in this seemingly normal house. The case has caused a stir in the community and has left everyone wondering what could have possibly happened inside those four walls. But what did really happen? Hey there, Viral Videos here. Before we go on, like this video, smash the subscribe button and click the notification bell. We post the most beautiful, amazing, and scary videos every single day. Let's proceed with the video. The peaceful and tranquil neighborhood was disturbed by a strange noise coming from a seemingly normal house. The neighbors reported hearing blood-curdling screams of "help me" echoing through the streets late at night. At first they thought it was just a nightmare, but as the screams continued night after night, they knew something was seriously wrong. It was a typical suburban neighborhood with well-manicured lawns and happy families living in their cozy homes. But the screams coming from the house down the street were anything but typical. The neighbors were becoming increasingly worried about the safety of the person inside. They had never seen any strange activity or heard any strange noises coming from the house before, and they had no idea what could be causing the screams. A group of neighbors gathered together to discuss what they should do. They were all afraid to go to the house themselves, but they knew that they couldn't ignore the cries for help. One of them suggested calling the police, and the rest agreed. They made the call, hoping that the authorities would be able to help the person inside. The police arrived quickly and approached the house, unsure of what they would find. They had never received a call like this before and were feeling uneasy about the situation. As they approached the door, they heard the screams getting louder and more urgent. They prepared themselves for the worst as they entered the house, guns drawn. The officers quickly assessed the situation and realized that they would need backup. They radioed for reinforcements and waited for them to arrive. As they waited, they started to question the neighbors, hoping to gather any information that could help them once they entered the house. The neighbors told them about the frequent screams they had been hearing and how they had never seen any activity coming from the house before. Finally, the reinforcements arrived and the officers felt more confident about going inside. They split into teams, with some staying outside to secure the perimeter and others going inside to search for the source of the screams. The atmosphere was tense as they approached the door, not knowing what they would find inside. What they found inside was shocking and unexpected. The house was quiet and seemingly empty, but they could hear the screams coming from a closed door at the end of the hallway. They cautiously approached the door, ready for anything. When they opened the door, they were left speechless at the sight that greeted them. As they entered the house, the officers were struck by the eerie quiet. They cautiously made their way down the hallway, their flashlights illuminating the way. Suddenly, they heard the screams again coming from a closed door at the end of the hallway. They approached the door, ready for anything. The officers were well trained and experienced, but they couldn't help but feel nervous as they opened the door. They had never encountered a situation like this before, and they had no idea what they could find on the other side. They slowly pushed the door open, their hearts pounding in their chest. What they found inside was like nothing they had ever seen before. It was as if they had stepped into another world. They were completely taken aback by the strange and unusual scene before them. They stood there in stunned silence, their minds racing as they tried to make sense of what they were seeing. The officers were shocked by the discovery, and they immediately called for more backup. They needed more manpower and resources to fully understand what was happening inside the house. They were determined to get to the bottom of this strange and puzzling situation, and they waited for backup to arrive. The officers secured the area and started to gather evidence. They took photographs and collected samples, trying to piece together what had happened in that house. They were completely baffled by what they had found, and they knew that they would need the help of experts to solve this mystery. Finally, more backup arrived and the officers were able to start their investigation in earnest. They were determined to find out what had happened inside the house and why the person was screaming for help. The officers were faced with a difficult and complex case, but they were determined to solve it and bring the person inside the house to safety. The next chapter in this strange and puzzling case was about to begin. The officers entered the living room with caution, their guns at the ready. What they found inside was completely unexpected and shocking. A man was standing in the center of the room, a gun aimed at his two young children. The children were huddled together in terror, tears streaming down their faces. The man was muttering to himself with eyes wild with fear. The officers could see that he was clearly in distress, and they knew that they had to act quickly to prevent any harm to the children or themselves. They approached the man, their weapons drawn, and ordered him to put the gun down. The man hesitated for a moment, then slowly lowered the weapon. The officers quickly disarmed him and placed him in custody. They then turned their attention to the children, comforting them and ensuring that they were safe. The children were shaken with fear, but they were relieved to see that the officers had arrived and were able to take control of the situation. The officers were stunned by what they had just witnessed. They had never encountered a situation like this before, and they were completely shocked by the man's behavior. They quickly secured the scene and started to gather evidence, trying to piece together what had happened in the house. As they investigated, they discovered that the man had been struggling with mental health issues and had become overwhelmed by the pressures of life. He had become increasingly isolated and paranoid, and he had begun to hear voices in his head that were telling him to harm his children. He had barricaded himself inside the house with the children and had screamed for help, hoping that someone would come to their rescue. The officers were horrified by the man's story, and they were grateful that they were able to intervene and prevent any harm from coming to the children. They quickly called for backup and began the process of transporting the man to a nearby hospital for a psychiatric evaluation. The neighbors were shocked by the events that had taken place inside the house. They had never suspected that anything like this was happening, and they were horrified by what had transpired. The police did their best to reassure the neighbors, but the rumors and speculation about what had happened inside the house continued to spread throughout the neighborhood. The man was eventually diagnosed with severe mental health issues, and he was placed under the care of a psychiatric team. The children were reunited with their family, and they received the support and care that they needed to recover from their traumatic experience. The officers involved in the case were deeply affected by what they had witnessed. They had never encountered a situation like this before, and they struggled with the aftermath of the event. They were grateful that they were able to prevent any harm from coming to the children, but they were haunted by the man's story and the suffering that he and his family had endured. The case was eventually closed, but the memories of what had happened inside the house would stay with the officers and the neighbors forever. It was a reminder of the importance of addressing mental health issues and the impact that they can have on families and communities. It was a chilling and sobering reminder of the unexpected and shocking events that can unfold in even the quietest of neighborhoods. The man was admitted to a psychiatric institution for further evaluation and treatment. The doctors quickly determined that he was suffering from severe mental health issues and that he was in dire need of professional help. He was unable to remember that the children he had held at gunpoint were in fact his own children, and he was filled with a deep sense of regret and guilt over what had transpired. The man's family was devastated by the events that had taken place. They had never suspected that he was struggling with mental health issues, and they were shocked and saddened by what had happened. They were determined to get him the help that he needed to recover and to make sure that he never posed a threat to his children or anyone else again. The children were still traumatized by their experience, and they were receiving support and care from the family and mental health professionals. They were slowly beginning to heal, but the memories of what had happened inside their home would stay with them forever. The police officers who had responded to the scene were also affected by the events that had taken place. They had never encountered a situation like this before, and they struggled with the aftermath of the event. They were grateful that they were able to prevent any harm from coming to the children, but they were also deeply troubled by what they had witnessed. The community was shocked by the events that had taken place in their neighborhood. They had never suspected that something like this could happen in their peaceful and quiet community, and they were haunted by the memory of the man's screams for help. The case received widespread attention, and it sparked a much-needed conversation about mental health and the importance of addressing these issues before they escalate. The man eventually recovered from his mental health issues and was released from the institution. He was reunited with his family, and they worked together to rebuild their lives and heal from their traumatic experience. He remained under the care of a psychiatric team, and he was determined to use his experience to raise awareness about mental health and to help others who were struggling with similar issues. The case was a tragedy, but it was also a reminder of the importance of addressing mental health and the devastating impact that it can have on families and communities. It was a sobering reminder that even the most seemingly peaceful and idyllic neighborhoods can be affected by mental health issues, and that it is up to all of us to be vigilant and to seek help when we need it. It was a long and difficult road, but in the end, the man was able to fully recover from his mental health issues. With the help of his family, medical professionals, and therapy, he was able to gain a better understanding of his conditions and to manage it effectively. He became a different person, one who was kind, compassionate, and deeply grateful for the second chance that he had been given. The children were able to forgive their father for what had happened, and they were able to see the man he had become. They were happy to be reunited with their father and to have their family whole again. They continued to receive support from their family and mental health professionals, and they eventually overcame their traumatic experience. The man's wife was a constant source of support throughout his recovery, and she never gave up on him. She loved him deeply, and she was grateful to have him back in her life. They were able to rebuild their relationship and to create a new and even stronger bond. They were grateful for the second chance that they had been given, and they made the most of it. The community was able to heal from the traumatic events that had taken place. People came together to support one another and to work towards a brighter future. They were proud of the progress that the man had made, and they were inspired by his courage and determination. They never forgot what had happened, but they were able to find hope and to look towards the future with optimism. In the end, everything was fine. The man, his wife, and his children lived happily ever after, surrounded by the love and support of their family and community. They continued to work towards their dreams and to build a better life for themselves and for those around them. They were grateful for the second chance they had been given, and they never took it for granted. They were a testament to the power of love, compassion, and the human spirit to overcome even the greatest of challenges. What did you think of the story? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Like the video and subscribe. See you next time.